Welcome back to My Hot Kitchen. I'm Wendy, and I have a delicious dinner for you to share with your sweetie on your next romantic date night at home. Tonight we'll be serving grilled lamb chops that have been loved up in rich red wine, garlic, and pepper. On the side we'll be doing an orange spice couscous, wilted spinach, and to bring it all together, a delicious garlic sesame bread. So let's get started on that garlic sesame bread first. You're going to want to combine a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of yeast with 3/4 of a cup of warm water. And when you put your finger in the water, it should feel just barely warm to you. You don't want it to be too hot because that will kill the yeast, but you want it to be warm enough to sort of activate the yeast. So whisk it together until all the ingredients have dissolved. Get them all nice and happy in your mixing bowl. And then add 1½ cups of all-purpose flour. If you'd like, you can substitute ½ cup of a whole grain flour. And then just stir these together to form a dough. A batch of bread this small will generally need to be mixed by hand. So if you want to do it in a mixer, I suggest doubling it and saving a little extra for your next night at home. So you just want to combine them together. As you stir it, the glutens are going to form and create a nice doughy bready texture. Now at this point, I'm going to move to working this on the counter. Sprinkle a nice amount of flour out here. Then I'm going to pour this out onto the flour. And then I'm going to sprinkle more flour on top. Most bread recipes that I'm familiar with usually require the addition of quite a bit of flour in the kneading process. It just kind of depends on the factors in your kitchen, what type of flour you're using, how humid it is, how moist your flour is, lots of different factors. So generally you start with the amount that's called out in the recipe, and then add flour as needed in order to get the nice doughy texture. And that will also help you to develop the right amount of glutens. I'm just going to work this on the counter, kneading it. You can knead it in whatever fashion you like. The most important thing to think about when you're kneading a piece of bread is that you want to work from the insides out so that you're folding it over on itself. There's lots of different motions you can use to make this work. You can push it, you can pull it, you can spin it. It's all going to get the same job done. Can see that although my dough ball is still a little sticky, it's gradually taking on more and more form of its own here. Keep adding more flour until I feel no more stick. There we go, it's already getting more and manageable with just a few strokes and a bit more flour added to it. Now I'm going to rub the accumulation off of my hands so that gets mixed into the dough as well. So there's a lot of flour in there. And now I'm going to knead this for 5 to 10 minutes until the glutens have formed. And I'll show you what that looks like when we get there. So now I'm pretty sure this bread is ready. I give it a little stretch here. That's great. I just want to see it stretch without breaking or chafing off too much. And the texture is going to be nice and soft with a very slight stick to it. Now we're going to mix the garlic into it. So I'm going to pat it out a little bit. Pile that garlic over the surface. And then I'm going to fold in the edges to encompass the garlic entirely in the bread. A little more flour down. I'm going to knead that garlic in there. I like kneading it in as a final touch because I feel like the garlic flavor stays cleaner than if you mix it in right at the beginning. This way your sweetie gets little yummy chunks of garlic with each bite. So another 1 to 2 minutes of kneading and you'll feel that coarsely chopped garlic mix all the way through the bread. So when you're there, what you want to do is just sort of work it in a circle on the counter. And as you're working it in a circle, you'll feel it sort of stretch and pull. The top will smooth up and the bottom will pinch together. And I like to assist it with a little extra pinch that helps to create a nice round shape. And there you go, there's a dough ball. Now this is going to rise into a nice round shape. Prepare my baking pan. An important thing to note about this bread is it will mold to the shape of any pan that you're using. So if you place it in a long flat pan, you'll get a long flat bread. Place it in something small and round, you get a nice little round. So now I'm going to sprinkle it with sesame seeds. Very generously. Give a little roll here to help it collect those other little sesame seeds that jumped over the side. And then a nice amount of cheese over the top. We'll add a little bit more of that when we go to bake it off. For right now, the bread needs about an hour to rise. And now, I'm just going to set this off to the side so that I can keep an eye on it while I make the rest of the dinner. Well, with the bread rising, now it's a great time to go ahead and get the fresh homemade mint applesauce ready to go. You're gonna love this recipe. It just uses fresh homemade ingredients and it tastes so good. So I'm gonna add a little olive oil to my pre-warmed pan here. Let's get a quarter of a red onion all loved up in that nice olive oil. And a couple cloves worth of coarsely chopped garlic. Give these a couple minutes of a head start. They can brown a little bit, they can sweat, it really doesn't matter to the end flavor. I'm gonna go for a little sweat here. Really just wanna give it a couple minutes to allow the olive oil to take on the flavors of the garlic and the onions. I'm gonna go ahead and crack a little pepper into there. Just after you see some degree of translucency develop, go ahead and add the apple. You'll note that it's peeled and that it's chopped up pretty fine. And that's so it cooks evenly and sort of dissipates and forms the sauce. Get that all loved up in the olive oil and the onions and the garlic. Now cook these until you see them soften up a bit. And then we'll add the rest of the tasty ingredients in. So after about 5 minutes of cooking on medium-high heat, the apples are going to be significantly softened. In fact, when you take your spoon and smash it, there we go, you'll see that it just yields to the pressure of the spoon. So now we're going to stain it with about an ounce of red wine, about 1.5 teaspoons of balsamic vinegar, and to help it cook correctly, a little splash of water. This time we're also going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And one final ingredient, nice little Thai chili pepper. This is optional if you don't like heat in your food, but I do. So does my sweetie. So I'm just gonna go ahead and poke it in there, smash it down, put the lid on, and then the sauce is gonna need to simmer for about 30 to 45 minutes under medium-low to low heat. It is time to get the garlic sesame bread in the oven. As you can see, it's approximately doubled in volume. And as it's doubled in volume, the cheese is stretched across the surface. So I'm gonna add a couple more sprinkles of that delicious Romano cheese on top. And then into the oven. I have it preset at 400 degrees. I'm gonna bake it at that temperature for about 10 minutes, then I'm gonna reduce the temperature. And after we get that going, it's a great time to get the couscous started. So couscous is gonna be a super simple preparation. And I'm going to start by the juice of 1 orange. I'm going to add to that water to equal a cup. That's great right there. And add that to a saucepan. While that comes up to temperature, you can prepare a little sachet. Remember, this is spiced orange couscous. So I have a little square cheesecloth and a little bit of kitchen twine. I'm gonna add to my sachet, actually I'm not gonna put the bay leaf in there. I'm gonna add to the sachet cinnamon sticks, cloves, coriander, and allspice. You can add any combination of spices that you like, but I really like this particular combo. Draw the bag, close it up, tie a nice little loving knot around it. And drop it in the orange juice and water. Add the bay leaf as well. What you want to do is bring that up to a nice little boil. You're going to put a lid on it at that point and let the spices steep in the juice. Perfect, we've reached a boil. Just going to stir the little sachet and the bay leaf in there. And then I'm going to put the lid on it and remove it from the heat and let it stand in that nice hot water for about 15 minutes and allow those delicious spices to reach their full potential. Hey, let's take a look at the apple mint sauce and see how that's progressing. Well, that's fun. Most of the water's cooked out. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that chili pepper out and its little stem friend as well. And this is the perfect time to go ahead and add the mint. About a half cup of coarsely chopped mint. Maybe just a little bit more water. And then it's actually time to mash it. Go ahead and mash it to pulverize the rest of the apples down. The end result's going to be kind of a thick and chunky sauce. Continue to simmer that until dinner's done to allow the mint to penetrate the flavor of the sauce all the way through. Oh, and it's time to check on the bread. It's been about 10 minutes, so let's take a look at it here. That's a pretty little loaf of bread right there. The first phase of baking formed a beautiful shape. Now it's time to reduce the temperature and bake it all the way through. I'm going to reduce the heat to 350 degrees, and it's going to bake for about another 10 to 20 minutes. Again, it's going to depend on your oven how long it takes. In the meantime, I'm turning my attention to the lamb. So I've already marinated the lamb in a nice blend of red wine, garlic, and pepper. I'm just giving it a little turn here so it gets nice and evenly marinated. You can see those gorgeous chunks of garlic. Took a little extra effort to stab them into the meat as well, and you can see how the meat has absolutely soaked up the gorgeous red wine. These babies are going to be so yummy. Now it's time to get the grill pre-warmed. You want to work with a nice hot grill anytime you're grilling lamb chops. Take a little look here at the sauce. That's coming along very nicely. You'll want to check it at this phase and make sure it's got enough liquid to be a little bit more saucy than it is chunky. Very happy with that, so I'm going to let it keep doing its thing. So the sachet, the spices, and the juice have been steeping long enough now, but you want to bring them back up to a boil before you add the rest of the ingredients for the couscous. We've achieved a boil here on our couscous juice, so I'm going to go ahead and add my small diced up carrot. Also a half teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of sugar. And let those simmer together for a couple minutes. Now let's go get the bread out of the oven. This is going to be so tasty. It smells so good. Ooh, doesn't that look delicious? I love how the cheese looks on top of that. Now it's time for the almost final step of the couscous. You're going to add the half cup of couscous and the zest of the orange that you juiced into the water. You want to give it a quick little stir here, and you want to see it maintain its boiling temperature. Go ahead and put your lid on it and then take it off the heat. Now it's a great time to get the chops grilling. You can also broil them if you don't have a grill handy. Love that sizzle. You'll notice that I'm giving them a little flip in the marinade before I add them to the grill. Just that last little loving douse, you know. All right, now it's time to play a little shuffle here with my pots and pans. The applesauce is fine, it doesn't need to cook anymore. But what I do need to do is get my big saute pan pre-warming so that I can wilt the spinach. Let's give these babies a little flip here. Yum. Now lamb is a little bit more greasy than a steak, so it might flame up a little bit on you. If it does that, just move it around on the grill and try to avoid those hot spots to prevent too much blackening from happening. And if you like, you can hit the lamb chops with a little bit of the marinade. Just helps to enhance the flavor. It really does nice things for the chops, actually. There we go. And now it's time to think about wilting my spinach. So I've got a nice big bowl of spinach and a clove or two of chopped garlic. And I'm going to keep this preparation very simple because it's going to be in contrast to the orange spice couscous. I'm going to add a little olive oil to my pre-warmed pan here. Give it a little swirl. That way you know that the oil's all evenly warmed. Add your garlic. Give it just a minute or two. You don't need to take it to translucency or brown it or anything. Just more flavoring the oil again. And you want to add the spinach when you start to smell the garlic aroma. Fill the air around you. And then using a motion like this, toss the spinach, coat it with the olive oil, drizzle in a few drops of balsamic vinegar, and hit it with some salt and pepper. Continue tossing it. You can see that some of the leaves are taking on a dark emerald green color. That means they're wilting. Just want to keep doing this until they've all taken on that color and started to reduce in volume. So that is the perfect texture right there. I'm going to go ahead and pull it off the heat because I don't want it to be melted spinach. You know, just wilted spinach. And back to these lamb chops over here. I'm going to hit them with a little bit more of this delicious marinade. Take them over and see how they're doing. Those feel done to me. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull them down off the heat of my grill and turn the grill off. Now let's put the final touches on this delicious orange spice couscous here. I have 1 green onion. I'm going to toss it in with the couscous after I remove the sachet and the bay leaf. The tossing is a really important step with couscous. It really rounds out the texture. So I'm just going to grab my spoon here, work from the outside in, just give it a little gentle, loving fluff. Now it's ready to go on the plates. Next up, we're going to bring in the applesauce. nice little pool of that here. Preparing the plates for the lamb chops. Put the chops on the sauce. Yum. And then finish off with the spinach. I'm going to press out the couscous just a little bit here. Lay this beautiful green spinach right on top. Yum. And there you go, another delicious romantic dinner for you to share with your sweetie on your next date night at home. For a little extra romance, you can think about pairing this little feast with a bottle of wine. Think a nice strong red Cabernet, a Syrah, or perhaps a nice Merlot. Now call in your sweetie. And the apron is out. Oh, hi, handsome.
Hi.
Hey, look what I made you.
Wow, does that look good?
Yes. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Well, let's eat, baby.
Looks delicious.
Here, a little fresh homemade apple mint sauce.
Wow, this is so good. Holy cow.
Wait till you try that. Ooh, ooh.
This is such a hot kitchen.
So thanks for joining me in my hot kitchen tonight. Have fun turning up the heat in your kitchen, and I'll see you next week. Night night.